Hey guys, Johnny Rampant here with ZBrush.com. Welcome to Chapter 1, Organic Modeling. In this chapter we're going to be doing the sculpture for just the base mesh, the character himself. And then in the next one we'll jump in and do the armor and accessories. Alright, so let's just jump into it and get started. So I just start with a basic sphere here in Dynamesh 43,000 polys. And basically what I'm going to be doing is working the primary form mainly with the move brush. And what you'll see me do with the sculpting brushes is just put in some landmarks occasionally, and then using the move brush to go ahead and using those landmarks, position them in the right place. Anything that's the move brush, anything that's the sculpting brushes, I sort of see as secondary forms, and the move is really in charge of a lot of the primary forms. So yeah, let's just go ahead and sculpt the skull. Now using Alt with the move brush, that pushes along the normal. I push in those ears, eyes sockets, and then just putting in some landmarks here, a mouth mound, pulling out that cheek hollow sort of. That's sort of the basis of a skull, and that's as far as I go with a skull before I start really putting flesh on it. You know, there's no point for me going a full-on skull. That's enough for me. Yep, so just pulling that that mouth socket back so that you've got a bit of draft there. I like to line up the eye with the nasal labial fold there, roughly, very roughly. It's not really a guide that I stick to, but it's very rough. Now he's an older male. Dealing with the concept, this is really just playing in the mud here. This is totally freehand concepting. I don't really know what I'm sculpting here. All that the brief said was a fantasy mercenary character of my own sort of take on it. So I wanted maybe something a little bit Game of Thronesy, maybe a little bit Persian-y, a little bit deserty. Yeah, definitely a baddie. So, not that Persians are baddies. Pretty nasty sort of character. That his the decisions he's made through his life are starting to show in his face. So I was going for a pretty coarse, gaunt, yeah, bit of a grimy character, tall and elongated. And yeah, his woeful decisions through his life or whatever are starting to show up on his face. So yeah, just masking off the nose area there so that it didn't get affected by that move. And I'm elongating his face as he's an older male, so you can do that. Using the Damien Standard as a modeling brush there with here to carving in the lip. But just prior to that was with the Alt button down to use it as a positive, adding geometry for the nasal labial fold. Just carving in that lip. I'm searching for the character. I'm just getting to know him as well here. I don't really know what the armor and everything I'm going to put on him. It's just spending time with him here, you know, and seeing what comes out. And every guy is different, and sometimes it really doesn't want to work, but you've just got to persist and you know, go look at reference if you need to. Yeah, just playing in the mud here. So making sure I get from the top view and the bottom view there, just checking the back of the skull, making sure the widest points towards the back, the highest point at the back of the skull from the side. Here I'm about to extrude the neck down. This is sped up to about 125%, so it's not that much faster than live, but of course the way ZBrush records the movie also speeds it up a little bit because it takes out any lag between your clicks. There I have the Brig Dynamesh. This is where I do the ear, so as you can see that's pretty much where I'm going to extrude from. I'm going to invert that, of course, but that's the area that I want connected to the head. You'll see how I pull it out, and now I'll stretch it so I don't have to tuck it in behind. That's just a handy little trick that I've worked out doing ears. And now just pushing and pulling around, seeing, just working with proportions, looking at what do I want to do, you know, what kind of character is he. He's a nasty dude, so smaller ears probably. Bigger ears I normally save for yeah, fun characters or nice, happy characters. Just working on that skull still, and that tempus, the temple area. Here I'm just masking that off and then polishing it back, and polishing, polishing a bit of this to get just a little bit of planar on that Zygomatic as well. Really powerful tool to polish. You can really use it as it can affect areas very subtly but really nicely as well. So yeah, now I'm just going straight into the as you can see here in the subtool, I've created a new sphere by just inserting a new sphere, and this will be the ribcage. So pulling it up here, you'll notice I didn't have symmetry on, so I just mirror and weld and keep going, pulling that up in the upper ribcage in. Now putting in the stomach area, the midsection, and the hip. So if you can see here, this is really important. Oh. This is really important, this gestural, and then you've got the leg will do the opposite, but everything's braced against itself. This character, I purposely took this out a little bit. I normally angle this even further, but anyway, so this, and then this here is really flexible. This is where most of your movement happens, and it's braced against this one. Everything in the body, as you get to understand anatomy and everything, you'll notice all this reoccurring bracing. I come from a construction background, so you really notice this as you get used to it, that everything is sort of braced against each other. It's yeah. Anyway, we'll keep going. So yeah, just putting in a couple of spheres for the shoulders. And this is how I like to work the base mesh, is with primary primitives. I find it really easy to adjust proportions, and I just think it's probably I can get what I want with the fewest amount of clicks, I think, doing it this way. And it just seems to be a bit cleaner. So there I'm just pulling out the pecs, pulling over the traps, adjusting the gesture a little bit on the back, pulling down the abdominals, putting in the 10th rib line, which I like to call. It's as you notice, the elbows should line up with the 10th rib, which is that section in the middle. Putting in some hands and just chopping them with the clip brush. Just maybe getting a little bit cute there, wasting a bit of time, but but I like to be able to get to this point and look at it, and this is where I can change proportions really simply if I want to. But I think I hit it pretty close straight off with this one. I don't think I adjust the proportions that much because I'm relatively happy. This is another beauty. So here I'm using, if you notice, the move topological. So after you've got these primitives in, before you Dynamesh them, you can move each individual one with the move topological and not have to worry about, dragging the other one around with it, which is really nice for these. As you can see, these make up the main forms of the body. So, and there I've just Dynameshed and just thrown a quick smooth over it. Now I'll go in and start putting in secondary form. Putting in some just pectorals there. Pulling these back now. If you just getting into the gesture of the arm there, I'll try to catch it a bit later if I can show you something. I'm not an anatomy expert, there are people out there who are much better at anatomy than me. I focus more on stylization and stuff, but yeah, there's some really great Raf Grazzetti's anatomy thing on Gumroad is great. But yeah, just putting in that delts and not traps, triceps. These are the traps. Just putting in the scapular stuff there, the infraspirata, whatever you call it, and the lats. Now the lats are the one thing that I really don't like to work until I've done the fingers and everything, because if you can notice under here, you don't want this to be too close until you're finished with Dynamesh, because you don't want this welding. So I leave the lats until after I've done the fingers normally. So yeah, just a lot of clay tubes, a little bit of inflate there, just giving it a little bit of bulk rather than using the clay tubes, because I'll have to smooth it out. Using the move brush there to pull that gestural back, this back underneath the arm, and this one comes more onto the forward. Just putting in the structures of the forearm now. I'm not going to get right into the anatomy. I haven't been classically trained or anything, so a lot of the anatomy I don't know the names for and stuff. I just know them in my head as, oh, this is the low one or this is the high one. And any of those tips that I see along the way, I'll sort of try to mention them. But yeah, I'm not really massive on names of anatomy, which I should probably learn. But so yeah, it's not looking real great up there at the moment, but sometimes you just need to keep moving around, constantly moving. That's one of the main things, is constantly rotating, constantly looking at. You can only see so much from each individual angle, so especially with this shader on. As we get into every time you rotate, you're seeing the outside of the silhouette change, and you're able to locate errors and problems. So that's pretty much what it is. It's death by 1,000 cuts, which is really the reason why I prefer sculpture over 2D, is because it's just so fluid, whereas 2D stuff is very rigid in a lot of ways, like a pencil line. I used to really like drawing, but nowadays I really struggle to get back into drawing because it's just so rigid. I struggle with it. Struggle with the limits of it, or the rules that you have to obey. Like, make pencil line, live with it. Just mucking around there with putting in a 5th rib, but I don't think it really works. I sort of just leave it there for the moment. So just putting in some abdominals here, just really rough, really quick, and putting in the obliques. I don't bother breaking symmetry here in the abdominals until much later on. It's really only a few adjustments to one side and you've completely broken the symmetry. You don't need to sculpt it all. Sometimes it's nice to do a sculpture in pose, you know, as a bit more of a traditional experiment or study using no symmetry. So yeah, just putting in those here, marking with the gesture of the forearm. This upper one comes up and it's much higher, the peak, and the much lower, the peak on the bottom one. A lot more moving, lot of just checking what needs to be fixed. That's all that rotating is I'm looking at the silhouette, I'm looking at the form. A lot of new people I see, they get into sculpting and they sort of get on one view and just sit there. And the more rotating you can do, the better. And the more brush you should be changing the size of your brush regularly as well, especially with moving operations. You should be you can sort of adjust the move brush to be the perfect size for each operation. You just get better at that. Putting in the Elliott crests there, lower abdominals. Now at this point I think I was thinking I want him to be really pretty thin. I sort of back out of that a bit later, but that's the beauty of ZBrush, it's fluid. So yeah, just mucking around with that that side silhouette. If I can catch it, I'll pause it there for you. But and here I'm just getting that mesh out of the way because this is the upper body mesh, and there'll be a separate piece for the lower body. So yeah, just more tweaking using the Damien Standard as sculpting there again. Something that I've just recently started using a lot more is a large scaled Damien Standard brush especially for the with Alt pressed in, so for a positive modeling technique. So it just gives you, it's just because of the alpha, it is just the standard brush, isn't it, with the alpha. So here you can see there I masked that bit out, but I didn't have enough geometry, but I didn't want to subdivide or anything, so I just Control D, which just divides that little bit in there. So that just gave me a lot more geometry just in that little bit, which is all I wanted. I still want to stay low poly here. I'm just adding a little bit of character, so I'm just spending time with him at the moment and just getting to know him, you know. Normally really the face is sort of the last thing that I really nail down because it's when you've spent the most amount of time with him. But I will always work the face early as well, just because it dictates a lot of what the armor might be like, with accessories, the cultural artifacts, etc. So I wanted him to have this guy to have dead eyes. So this is a bit different to a lot of the ways that I do eyes, but for this guy I just felt like this was the way that I wanted to do it. most of the time I'll just put a sphere in there first and then sculpt the eyelids around it, but I wanted him to have these dead eyes, so the heavy upper lid hanging down, so I just did that first. Now I just put an eye in there. Of course, it's a new subtool. Now this is the second movie. The quality's not the best. I accidentally recorded it on medium and I couldn't get it back. I couldn't change it after the fact, so I apologise for this, but it only goes for 10 minutes or so, and then all of the rest are good quality again, so bear with us. We'll get through this one. So yeah, just doing the lower section. So this is another subtool, if you can see over here. Doing it the same way as I do the uppers, is with these primitives. Doing the ball as the kneecap, just so that I can have that multiple normals to shoot my cylinder off. Here I just turn, oh no, I don't even turn perspective off. Just clip the bottom, hard H polish to get those rough sizes. And then if you can get to an angle which you know what the profile looks like, that's why the head is so quick to do, is because you can go to the side and just sculpt the head from the side, and then go to the front and sculpt the head from the front, and you're done in those two without any more rotations almost. You'll get it in the ballpark anyway. But the foot can be a bit difficult, but if you can clip the bottom and then get underneath and put the footprint sort of shape, that'll help you get the top done quicker as well. And this is the one bit that I didn't really do well with the primitives, was the lower leg. A little bit lumpy down there. And I've 148,000. It's not too high, but maybe it's just this resolution, this bad recording, that makes it look a little bit. So yeah, just putting in the bum, putting in the fascia latte. Yeah, and just adjusting these legs slowly, rotating, trying to get rid of that lumpiness. Just putting in that vastus medius and vastus laterus. Slowly banging it into shape. Bit of a panel beating job, this one. Putting in the quads, groin muscles. Yeah, well, there's not much to say here really. I really wish that I would come off of this shader at this point, because it's a bit hard to see. Just working the patella and all of the knee structure. Just working on the gestural here. It's just not looking that great at the moment. Working that Achilles down the back of the, which runs right up the back of the leg. Join with the calf. And here we go. He's finally swapped to the basic material, which is a lot easier to see, as you can see. So yeah, and just still putting in that that basic form in the body, in the legs. Getting pretty close now to something roughly. It hasn't got much stylized on it yet. I think the first thing I do at the beginning of the next one is elongate. I put him in transpose master and stretch him up a bit, just adjusting by eye, you know, however I want. Not really concerned too much with the anatomy of the legs. I know there was going to be a long dress on top of it, as well as the original. At this point I was planning on putting a large back cloak as well on him, but I didn't end up getting around to that. I didn't think it needed it in the end. The poses that I created didn't necessarily require it. So there I'm just using the transpose master as here up in the corner. You can see it's got the recording because it's recorded. I don't know. Yeah, when you stretch out the transpose master there like that, it posts up at the top here in units, so you can use it as a measuring tool as well. So just from the pelvic bone up to the top of the head and down to the bottom should be relatively equal. So here I'm just rotating the feet out, just giving him a bit of weight. When I transpose just up here, you'll notice here I'm careful not to let those touch. If they touch, they'll weld with the transpose. So yeah, just rotated those legs out a little bit and gave him a hell of a lot more weight. Riggers don't like that. The riggers like their feet straight ahead and everything like that, but supposedly. It's not hard to twist them back. So yeah, just touching up some secondary forms here. Still pretty rough, but we're in the ballpark. And at this point I think I've been going for probably a little bit over an hour and a half or something. So yeah, I've spent an hour and a half with him, and I'm starting to get to know him. That's really what it's about. I think in the end the whole project ended up taking me about 40 hours or so, somewhere around that mark anyway. A fair bit of that was just rendering out ZBrush movies and stuff. Of course, that really slowed me down on this one. So just putting in those forearm muscles again. You'll see me come back to certain areas a couple of times till I'm happy with what I get. Like I say, I'm not an expert at anatomy, so criticize away. I'm still learning. So yeah, just getting that delt to go right up underneath. It connects to the muscle, connects to the bone, I mean, up underneath the delt. So just continuing that right underneath the delt. Getting that little vacant pocket between the delt and the pec. The back of that delt back into meet the lats, the traps, sorry. So here I start looking at the head a little bit more. I've always got to pull myself up to stop myself doing this, because you can really get sucked into the head too much early on. I feel I like to do the head last when you really know him. I'm thinking about his cultural sort of stuff, especially while I'm doing the accessories and armor and stuff like that. I'm sort of thinking about what he's, what's he do with his spare time? What's he, what's his past? What, does he believe in God, etc., etc. All these things that make up an individual as a character. I sort of see this guy as he's either probably an ex-slave or something. It's been a long time since he's been normal anyway, and all of these, he's obsessed with money and stuff. That was the idea behind the mercenary angle, was that he'd do anything for gold, and it's all starting to manifest on his face a bit. So just touching up things that I see that are wrong. This is all going to be under clothes here. Putting in the Great Trochanter area here. Using a little bit of H polish there, which helps. It's really like a powerful smooth. Because smooth is really like a relax, but H polish is a lot more like an actual smooth. Can be anyway. So here I'll work the hand, and then I'll be able to do the lats afterwards. So I masked that off and split that hand off, as you can see, just for ease, in case I wanted to go solo, or just for ease. I'll re-Dynamesh it and re-weld it. I think I did think that's why it took me so long to get here. I knew he would be having guards on his hands or something, so I did think about, was I going to be having hands as separate? I think just after I make these hands, I decided to just weld them back on. So yeah, that's how I make a finger, same sort of way. Primitive. Pull the nail back in. You can see there, that's the gesture is pretty standard there, and then in at the bottom. I mean, that took me all of like 30 seconds. I probably should have gone through and put a bit more detail on it just to save me time later, but me being a sucker for punishment. Yeah, so just rotating these fingers in a bit, getting them all angling, curving around. They're not, all four of them aren't just dead straight, are they? The thumb I just make out of a finger as well. That obviously needs a little bit of work. It's looking horrible there at the moment. I can't believe I didn't scale that in a bit. That thumb, it's a bit long. There we go. I gave him a little bit more fatness. And now I just switch to, so those fingers were done as a separate subtool, of course. Yeah, now I'm just jumping back to the palm. I'll bang that into shape before I merge it with the fingers and Dynamesh it. So yeah, there's really what defines the knuckle is really the hollow between the knuckle and the finger in between, rather than the raise of the knuckle. Putting in the hand creases, pretty standard stuff. Building in those hollows. Panel beading. Building up this, is it the helix? Can't. No, it's not the helix, that's the ear, I think, isn't it? Okay, so there you go, it's Dynameshed together now. Just adding those 3 knuckles. The pinky really doesn't have a intense knuckle. It's normally hidden under a line of fat from the other knuckle, from the other finger. Putting in some of these tendons on top of the hand, just subtle, knocking them back, putting them in, knocking them back. Just a little bit of scaling, and there we go, it's welded to the upper body now. So now that that's done, I will be able to go back and do the lats and all the other things. I can pretty much turn, I don't think I do turn Dynamesh off, but I can pretty much turn Dynamesh off now. All my form's in there. I don't need to weld anything. That's really all Dynamesh is for, is welding stuff. Everything's welded now, so it can be ZBrush from now on. And that's really a pretty big stage. As soon as you get past the Dynameshing stage, then you can start working towards a low poly, good ZBrush, which will hold your detail at a lower cost, and everything. So yeah, this is a concept sculpt. I see it as. So once it's all finished, it's really just, like I say, a concept sculpt, and then if it got approved or it was going to be actually used, you'd go back through a lot of these assets at the end and just really polish them up, make them nice, and maybe go in that one further level. I think I don't take them right in up to super high polys. This guy has a hell of a lot of assets, and I think at the end he's probably close to 30 million or something, or maybe 25 million or something like that, which isn't super high, so yeah, you could totally come back afterwards, and if you're going to use him, if you like him, yeah, fatten him up. So yeah, just tweaking, adjusting wherever you see something that's not right, rotating constantly, just looking for errors, Alright guys, see you in the next one.